All right, so I think we're live. So Coach's Corner number 3 today. Going to talk about pass game for a little bit. It's going to be a chalk talk today, and I'll follow it up one day next week with some film. I'm just going to check the audio here. If anybody's on the chat, you can give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. But I think I'm in pretty good shape there. But if you want to chime in and whatever, then let me know. Like I said, next week, I believe on Monday, we're gonna have Coach Capone in. I'm just gonna turn this screen towards me here. Pretty high tech at the studio here. We're doing another podcast for the school there at 10, so and then turning this one around at 12. But next week, just to preview, Monday, Coach Capone on special teams. Should be a good presentation. And then Tuesday, I'm going to follow up with a film session based on the stuff that we go over in the pass game today. Wednesday, looking to hopefully get another guest in to speak. Could be Coach Capone again on compressed formations, or it might be Coach Bachler, my offensive line coach. So we'll see if we can get somebody in and do that. Going to try to get Coach Russell from Norwich, Kennebunk grad, played for RAF. Going to try to get him in to talk a little bit about college recruiting process. And then I think on Friday, I'm going to wrap up the week with practice planning. I had a few guys email me last night and ask about what do our practices look like, how do we kind of set up the week and that sort of thing. So I guess the first thing that I'll do is address the couple of questions that I got last night. Well, I'll go with this one first, the communicating the motions. We have a lot of guys, the last 2 segments we did were on jet motions and all of the plays in our jet suite package, and there was some questions about how do they know which slot goes in motion, what if it's trips and they're both on the same side, is it number 2 or number 3? So I can talk about that a little bit. We have some calls for our motions. They usually, if it's in a 2x2 set and either slot can go in motion, then if we want a guy to go in motion to the right, they start with an R, and if we want them to go in motion to the left, they start with an L. So you can use whatever you want. We've used Ray and Lou and Rip and Liz and Roger and Lucy and Ringo and Lucky and all sorts of different terms that way. And obviously when we're huddling, we can call those in the huddle. And when we're not huddling, we have, like I said yesterday, we're kind of this combination of boards and signals. And one of the boards that we hold up is one of our backup quarterbacks just holds up a board with a motion name. And then the kids just look to the sideline, they can see it. But you'll notice too, when we play, that's probably the last mode of communication. Before we snap the football, if there's a motion, the quarterback is at least going to make eye contact. If not, just make a little signal with the slot to let him know that he's the one going in motion. Sometimes you'll even see the slots kind of look at each other and do it that way as well. So, when we're in 3x1, like in trips, we have a special call if it's the number 2 guy. So if it was the number 3 guy, it would just be our normal R or L call, whatever we're going to use. And if it was going to be number 2, we have just a special code word that means number 2 guy in trips go in motion, or the furthest slot from the ball, if they're on the same side, is going to go in motion. So that's how we do that. We do have, I put some motions up here. I know there's a lot written up on the board here, and I hope you guys can see it pretty good. I'm going to try to leave this up here and draw on the other side a little bit today. I think if I'm drawing on the other side with my right hand, that'll keep my big head out of the screen. But I did put up, we have what we call jet, or some people call fly motion. So you guys saw a lot of that in the first 2 clinics. We also have what we call pitch motion, which is jet motion, but it's closer to the line of scrimmage because we're either going to pitch it to them or fake it to them. We have an arc motion, which you guys we do a ton. So that's behind the quarterback. We have cross motion like everybody in America does. We have tear motion, we call it, which is the tailback motioning out of the backfield to empty things out. And then we also have a motion we call shimmy, which is when you take a flanker who's off the line, a wide receiver, and kind of bring him in I think a lot of people call it crack motion, where you bring him towards the tight end. So, when we're in the game, if we're in no huddle, all those are on a board, and the kids can just look over and they see that word, and that board, the linemen never look at that board, but they can see it that way, or we just call them in the huddle before the play. Lots of times too, we've had some years where we sub a guy every play, and he'll come in and he'll yell a formation and a motion, and then we go from there and signal the play, and we're off. So that's how we communicate our motions. In terms of practice planning, like I said, I'm not going to go too deep into that because we're going to do a whole talk next week on practice planning. But just to kind of give you a general idea, we play Friday nights most often, so our typical practice week is maybe sometimes a Saturday, sometimes not. Sometimes we give them Saturday off, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. If we do come in on Saturday, it's usually for a couple of reasons. Sometimes we have to travel quite a bit, so lots of times that's the reason we would give guys a day off, because we get back after midnight, and to get back here early in the morning on Saturday, we just feel like we'd rather have them sleep in. Sometimes sometimes we're playing on a Saturday, so we get back on a Friday night and we know we have an extra day the next week than when we won't practice Saturday. Sometimes the opponent is just very different from what we've seen the last few weeks. So maybe we've seen odd front for 3 weeks in a row, and next week's going to be an even front, so we might have a Saturday to review our even front rules. Maybe the opponent, maybe we just played 3 wing T teams in a row, and this one's going to be a spread, so we want to review some defensive stuff or whatever. So there are some times when we practice on Saturday. Typically those are a conditioning and an install type of practice. I think there's definitely an advantage to bringing guys in on a Saturday to get them to run and condition and get some of that lactic acid out of their muscles and that sort of thing. Also a chance to check in with the trainer on potential injuries and starting treatment and things like that. So sometimes guys will come in just for that. But I think there's also something to be said for 2 days off. And we probably take more Saturdays off than we practice. And I think just giving your guys a chance to rest, chance to sleep in, just a chance to kind of take a break for a couple days isn't a horrible thing. It's also not a horrible thing for you coaches. A lot of coaches on my staff have families, have younger kids or high school age kids, and they're pretty busy during the week and during the season, so a chance to get them a little extra time with their family, I don't see anything wrong with that. So when we start the week, typically on a Monday, it's usually an install and conditioning type of day. Usually we're in just helmets, so there's not a high level of contact, and we'll install our game plan on both sides of the ball. There's usually some film study that goes along with that. It could be either breaking down some parts of our film from the game before, or it could be previewing some film of the opponent, or maybe a combo of both, depending on what we're doing. Usually our JVs play on Monday as well, so there's not a lot of bodies to go against necessarily in practice. So most everything we do is on air. Try to get a few throws in for the quarterbacks and the receiver, maybe a few routes on air. Tuesday we get into is a primary offense day. Usually we're in uppers on Tuesday. Usually that's, Coach Bach and I, my line coach, we call it the lab day, where if we're kind of trying something out that we haven't run it in a while, or maybe we're adding something to the game plan that hasn't been in there, it's a good day to see what that looks like live instead of on paper. We have our individual period, which is our position work. We have a group period, which involves some of our timing on our motions and our read plays and our 7v7. Then we have a team period, and then we finish Tuesdays with a team defense period where they nail down all their formation adjustments and that sort of stuff. Wednesday is a primary defense day. We still do a Group O, Team O on the other side of the ball. We usually do it usually first in practice. Sometimes we put it towards the end. Just depends on how much work we need on the defensive side. That's also our individual period day for defense. They get their position work. It's our group period. We do a 7-on-7, an inside run. Then they have a team period. Usually some punt returns are built into that one. Usually some punts are built into the Tuesday offensive period, so that we're working both of those. And our Tuesday, Wednesday practices typically go longer. Those are usually a little over 2 hours on those days. We try to get in a little circuit work with our tackle and turnover stuff on Tuesday, but I'll put all that up next week. And then Thursday is a special teams period, a team offense period, a team defense period. Usually there's a little bit of group time. But yeah, I'll nail some of that down and give you some specifics on some of that stuff next week. By all means, email me if you have some questions. Michael.Hathaway at msad52.org. You can message me on Twitter at CoachHath19. And if you have questions, I certainly can answer them. But planning on doing a presentation on practice planning and kind of dividing that up into preseason versus regular season, and involving some install talk in some of that, and how we kind of plan some of that stuff out. Because as you can see, there's quite a bit of stuff on the board here. And this is a kind of a, put this up this morning, this is kind of a breakdown of our pass game. And I would say again, similar to what I said on the first talk about the Jet Suite packages, you treat this like a menu. We do not have all of this stuff in every week. Some of these we didn't run it all this year. This is kind of a synopsis of over the past 5-6 years, some different concepts that we've used. Just a little bit on on philosophy. We kind of categorize some things, and you can see some of these categories up here. We use a lot of high-low concepts in our pass game, where the quarterback has can read it, and kind of has an underneath option, a deeper option, and then sometimes with our flood concepts has a middle option. So we spend a lot of time on that, where we have a front side concept called, and then a back side concept called with it. We will run some mirror concepts, but I would say more often we run a play side concept and a back side concept, because I think it's difficult. Like if you're going to throw smash and throw hitch corner, it's difficult to, if it's not there on one side, to go to the other side. We would rather have those backside players coming into the view of the quarterback and not have to make those throws late into the flat or far down the field towards the sideline. We use a lot of backside tags, and as the years go on, you can develop more and more. We have a couple basic ones that we put in first. I'm going to talk about those in a little bit. We have some one-step stuff and some three-step stuff. The one-step stuff is designed to get out pretty quick. The three-step stuff is stuff that's a little further down the field, the intermediate and deeper routes. We spend a fair amount of time on footwork, in the pocket, out of the pocket, some things like that. I think planning, as we're going ahead here, we just found out that we're out of school till at least April 27. So you're definitely going to get some more of these things. I'm going to spend one session on quarterback play and talk about kind of how we train our quarterbacks here at Levitt. So I won't get too much into the drills and stuff today, but we certainly spend a lot of time on our footwork and the one-step, the three-step, the half-roll, play-action stuff, and the sprint out. And we have some pretty good breakdown drills that we use to help those guys out that we think have translated pretty well into their play in the game. In terms of pass protection, I guess I'll talk about that first. I think, regardless of what you're going to choose from the menu over here, your pass protection is the most important part of your pass game. Because if a quarterback feels comfortable, wherever he is, whether it's in the pocket or on a half roll or on a sprint out, if he can feel comfortable looking at his receivers and knowing that he's not receiving a lot of pressure, he's all of a sudden going to become a more accurate thrower. One of the things kind of going into practice planning, usually on Wednesdays, that Group O period that we have, it's a short one. It's sometimes like 10 minutes, but it'll just be pass game with the quarterbacks and receivers, and we'll send the tailbacks with the offensive linemen, and they'll do like a 6-on-7 pass rush type of thing, and go over review how we're going to block versus different stunts and blitzes and things like that the other team uses. Sometimes there's subtle adjustments within our pass protection that we need to work. But we essentially, we use 5 different protections. I would say we use 3 in every game plan, and then the other ones are kind of specific week to game plans. We use a lot of big on big protection when we're throwing from the pocket. In our big on big protections, it's exactly what it sounds like. The offensive linemen are responsible for the defensive linemen. The tailback and the quarterback are responsible for the blitzing backers. And I think that it's important that sometimes we'll send the quarterback down to that pass pro segment and have the backup quarterback take some reps in the 7-on-7, so that the quarterback is calling or adjusting protections against various things. It's important that he knows where the protection is and what the potential things that can screw up that protection, what they are. As you guys saw, I think in the film yesterday, we're fortunate to have a 2 and about to be 3-year starter quarterback who, no quarterbacks really like to get hit. So, he kind of enjoys, I think, the part of it of knowing that he's part of that pass protection, and you'll see him, switch the tailback to different sides. You'll see him, kind of point out potential blitzers at times. You'll see him walk up to the line and communicate things with the O-line, different things like that. So we use our big on big protection. We also use what we call a slide protection, which is basically a gap protection, where they're either sliding right or sliding left and protecting the gap that way. We also use a sprint protection, which is probably more than a gap. It can be a full man, but it essentially, in most of our slide protections, the tailback is, if we're going to slide right and gap that way, the tailback is usually responsible for the backside gap. When we're going to sprint protect, usually the tailback is out in front, so we have an extra blocker on the front side, and this is a dead sprint out with the Q, whereas in the slide protect, it might be off a play action with a half roll, so he's not really trying to get the edge. And then when we sprint protect, usually we tell these guys, if there's not a man 1 over, then you can hinge back, and that usually allows us to take care of the weak side defensive end. And sometimes you can't, we just have to outrun them. Sometimes if the quarterback feels like he needs to check it from a sprint protection to a slide protection, he can do that. There's multiple ways that you can do it. But one of the drills in the slide protection that we do that's been pretty good is, I'll take the quarterback and with no line up here, and we'll put, it's usually me or whoever's working with the Qs that day. We'll have a quarterback, and then one of the backups here, he'll come out of his mesh, so we're working on the mesh on the play action, and if I come up the field, he's going to shuffle up, and usually our third quarterback standing here, and he throws it to him. Or if I get caught inside, he'll continue to roll out, and this guy will drift with him, and then he'll throw it on the run. So that's a drill. We'll do that, probably 5 to 6 times during double sessions. And that's usually a staple of our quarterback indie period. It's pretty good. It's something too. If you're minimized with what you have in your coaching staff, and we're lucky to have quite a few coaches that practice every day here at Levitt. But if you don't have that luxury, that's a drill. If you've got 3 quarterbacks, you take your varsity guy, your JV guy, your freshman guy, or take a receiver who might be injured or whatever, you can send them over and do that. It's pretty easy, but just the feel of the pocket and the quarterback knowing, where his escape paths are, how he can escape, being able to throw on the run, those are all important pieces of the pass game that need to be drilled and worked on a regular basis. So we'll bob protect a lot, we'll slide protect a lot, we'll sprint protect a lot. Those are our 3 primaries. We do have what we call turn back, which is basically the gap away from the sprint. So, if the quarterback might be sprinting this way with the tailback in front of him, and we'll gap back this way. Sometimes there's some specific plays out of empty with jet motion, where we have a slot who's going to be involved in the pass protection, picking up a side, and we have to use turn back on a few specific plays. So the lineman might know, when we're running Batman, it's a turn back, because we've got plenty of guys for the front side end. For example, I think you guys saw the Batman play the other day. We run a wheel seam here, and it's off a jet motion fake coming this way, and sometimes we have the tailback. So both backs are coming this way. So we want the lineman to turn back and gap away from it. So it's a different call for us. And they just know, usually in the game plan, like, hey, there's 1 or 2 plays where turn back is our best choice. We usually our center is the communicator, or one of the guards. This year we had a sophomore center, but a couple of real experienced guards. So, but somebody in there calls them and lets them know. The other thing you can do is waggle protect. Coach Bach and I always go back and forth on how much we want to do that. I think one of the advantages is if you get teams who are reading your guards and you're using a guard in the pass protection as a puller, that to them it's hard to differentiate whether that guy's pulling to go trap or whether he's getting out there to be in pass protection. So, having that as part of the package isn't a bad idea. Like I said, we don't use it a ton, but if you can get, this backer, whatever his, however they decide to play it, whether it's, a run through or a scrape, if you can get him up in there and then bring some guys in behind him, obviously that can be an effective way to plan some of your play action plays. The other thing that we'll do sometimes with the front side guard is in our slide protections, and a lot of this depends on how good these guys are. If our tackle is not an extremely athletic kid, and we're facing an odd front, and we know it's more like a 50 than a 3-4 where they're bringing the end almost every time, then lots of times we'll go on with the tackle and pull the play side guard. And then we'll gap here, gap here, gap here, and bring the tail back to the weak side. So that's how we handle a lot of our pass protection. Okay. In terms of just install, how we go through that process. On the install, first thing you got to cover is formations and motions, and how do we call our plays out of that? We have a passing tree that we use. The routes are numbered, and you can do inside out, left to right, whatever you want to do with that. And then we have kind of these one-word calls and these backside tags that we use, and they mean certain numbers. So kids for us might remember that that rub is 972. And if you can put wristbands on kids, and you can have the name with the number code, and they know if I'm number 2 in rub and it's 972, that I've got the 7, okay, which is a curl route for us. So we have those 10 routes in our tree. We run hitch, out, stick, corner, fade, post, curl, dig, slant, and wheel. And then we have some other routes that we've had to develop over time. Shallow crosses that aren't part of the tree, bender routes, like a post, corner, post type of route. Some special routes that just have names, and guys know in some of the plays that that I have that. So we run wheel stop sometimes. Just some different things. So you can kind of add to your tree. But one thing that we want to make sure of when kids get here from the middle school is that they know the tree. So our middle school coaches spend a lot of time on making sure that those guys know the tree, and then we give them a couple of basic pass plays that we want them to have down pat when they get here. So they usually have four play actions. They usually have a couple of trips plays. They usually have a couple of 2x2s, and then they have a couple of backside tags. So you're probably talking about 10 to 12 pass plays that when they finish 8th grade and they come in as freshmen, we would like them to have. They start with probably 6, and then over the course of the year they hope to finish with 12. And then when they come in as freshmen, we basically start with those same 6, and get them to 12 a little quicker, hopefully through the preseason. And then, as the year goes on, they might add 1 a week or every other week. So after we've covered, how we're going to line up, how we call the play, how motion affects that. Then we kind of categorize our plays as these are ones we run out of 2x2, these are ones we run out of 3x1, these are ones we run out of empty. So they know those plays, and they know in this formation here's kind of the menu. In our 2x2 formations, here are the 6 plays that we have. In our 3x1 formations, here are the 5 plays that we have. In our empty sets, you really are running these again, but we have a couple specials that we add. And then as the year goes on, we build in a multitude of these backside tags that we can tag on the back of any of those to make them work. And then also, I would add to that list, you got to have your, within those, you got to have your screen game. Okay, and then, I think, in addition to that, you also want to have some plays off of those screens. So you want to be able to, fake the smoke screen and throw something down the field, or fake a bubble screen and throw a high-low concept off from it. So we have some of those looks built in, and we throw just enough screens to be able to make people think about them enough that we can run some of those other ones when we're looking to go for a shot. So we categorize them that way. And then the next thing we look at is, we try to get the kids familiar with, all right, these are plays that we like against any coverage. It doesn't matter whether it's man, man 2, cover 1, cover 3. These are plays that we like against any coverage. And we kind of teach the quarterbacks and the receivers, really, when it's 1 high in this play, this is what you look for. This is the read. I know one of the best presentations I've ever been in on was Coach Wilder when he was up here in Maine. And Coach talked a lot about the different reads that they use in their pass game, and they were area reads and high-low reads, and I think what he called object reads were when you're reading a specific player. And we use a lot of those concepts in the teaching of our quarterbacks. And we say to them, all right, this is a 1 high look. It's either cover 3 or cover 1. We're trying to throw a seam off the free safety. Here's your read. Or this is a cover 3 team. We're going to flood this to this side. You got to read the flat player pre-snap. You maybe read the depth of the corner and go from there. So we're constantly kind of dividing up the plays that we run against everything into, who am I going to read when it's 1 high and what am I going to look at when it's 2 high. And even as receivers, do I have to adjust my route a little bit, 1 high versus 2 high? Like I think you guys saw yesterday when we were running our Joker concept, which is our, kind of isolate a backside receiver off jet motion. If he gets a soft corner, he's going to run something shallow. And if he gets a hard corner, he's going to run something deep. And, we like to get to the point maybe where they don't have to hand signal that and give it away or try to communicate, that they can just kind of give each other a look and know based on where the corner is that's what they're going to throw. Then you also have some plays that are kind of specific. We have some man beaters, some cover 2 beaters, some cover 3 stuff, and some stuff out of trips that we really, really like against quarter half, because we see a lot of that. So, I think it's important that once you've selected your plays based on how you're going to line up, that you also then take a look and say, all right, versus certain coverages, what do I like? And I know with some of our quarterbacks, we've actually made charts for them where they can take that home and they can kind of look at it and they can be, all right, well, this, we're going to see 2 high this week, so these are the plays that we like. And certainly we communicate quite a bit with our players what the game plan is and what plays are in play. That's kind of the last thing we review with them on game day. Particularly with the quarterbacks, or what are our favorite things going in against their favorite coverages. So I think when you install and when you game plan, that's kind of how we break it down. But somebody asked me as well, and I should have put it up on the questions, about how do you organize all these on your play sheet. I'm not a down and distance guy necessarily. I may have some tendencies there, I may not. We do self-scout, and I think we do a pretty good job of mixing it up. But if we can run the ball, I would prefer to run the ball. But if we're gonna, whatever we're gonna do, the down and distance doesn't matter a heck of a lot to me. It might just matter more what the defense is doing, and we're trying to get that information and then get it out that way. So our play sheet is kind of organized in These are our 2x2s, our 3x1s, our empties. This is what we like against 2 high. This is what we like against 1 high. This is what we like against man. You know, in trips, you know, this is what we like. So we kind of organize it that way. And then also, what are our best play actions? What are our best screens? And I think it's important when you think about your play actions that you think about what's our best run play. So, you know, if we're good at jet sweep, it wouldn't make sense for us not to have good play actions off from jet sweep. So that's kind of where we stand with that. Let's get into some of these plays. We'll draw some of these up on the board and take a look at them. I'm going to start again with the things that we run the most. So, you know, for us, I kind of circled these play actions up here, and you saw some of these, but I'll review those. You know, real quickly here. You know, thunder and lightning, and again, when we build in our jet motion stuff, it's really just, you know, they're all the same play actions. I'm hoping you guys can see that on the screen pretty good. Let me see what I got there. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, so you know, our Joker and Batman are kind of specific to jet motion. But thunder and lightning, we can run with the back in the backfield and just play action off inside zone, or we can run it off from jet motion. Doesn't really matter to us. But I'll show it to you since we did a lot of jet motion stuff. I'll kind of show everything, mostly without jet motion, unless it's a specific one. So thunder and lightning is a waggle concept for us. So when we're running thunder and lightning, it's off the inside zone or the counter fake inside of the tailback. The quarterback's going to half roll. Typically, we're going to slide protect this thing and use a gap protection scheme. And there are times too when the line coach will come and say, we just need to big on big everything this week. And if he says that, then that's what we do. Thunder is kind of like regular waggle. And this on the backside would be what we would call a drag concept, where we're going to run the deep banana for 12 yards to try to get in the hole between the out and the corner. And on the backside, he's going to read the safety. And if the safety gets up in there, he's going to post behind him. And if the safety's bailing, he's going to dig in front of him. So we call that a post-dig choice. So our guys know when we run drag, if I'm number 1, I always have a post-dig choice. And if I'm number 2, I always have the deep banana. And if I'm front side, first guy runs corner, second guy runs out. And then when we run lightning, the only thing that's different is we switch those. So it's like some of you wing T guys would call, hope some wing T guys are watching this. We call waggle switch, where we run the out with the corner. I love that play. Probably my favorite. You know, you see a lot of cover 3 to try to get 8 in the box to stop the run. You get those soft corners. You can throw that out all day. He really has to respect the corner route. If the free safety tries to get over on the corner route and help out there, then you got all sorts of stuff open on the backside. Lots of times when we run lightning, we like to change the tag on the back. And instead of drag, you know, we'll run a Dallas and double post it. You know, so also if you're thinking cover 2 with 2 high and this guy expands there, then you got one guy covering 2 on the back. You know, obviously the corner's going to bail and try to get underneath this one, but it's a pretty good time to take a shot on the back. The other backside tag, just while we're there, that we use a lot is drive when we compress things. So we'll be down here in tight end wing, and drive is always a shallow by number 1 and a dig by number 2. So the quarterback half rolls. If that doesn't look good, then you'll see him redirect his feet, redirect his eyes, and he'll get back and high-low the middle and read that. So that would be thunder and lightning. The first 2 pass plays that we put in, the first 2 that they learn in 3rd grade and 4th grade and 5th grade and 6th grade and 7th grade and 8th grade is thunder and lightning. Next. All right, next, just to review from yesterday, Joker, which is probably the play that we call the most off from jet. We bring this guy in motion. This is almost a complete choice. We usually tell him if it's a soft corner, he's got to run something shallow. It could be a 5 and out, it could be a 10 and out. If he's got a hard corner, he's probably going to run a corner route or just a fade route. And if he's got something that's, a cover 3 with a lot of outside leverage, he can skinny post that thing. So it's really, a lot of it's just game plan. We know going into the week how the other team likes to play, with what leverage they like to play, and we kind of pick one of those. And then, if they're not lined up that way in the game, then he have to communicate and have to figure that out. And then on the backside, lots of times because we're compressed, we drive this one on the back, and you get that. I think you saw one yesterday where we dragged it, and we hit the backside post against Cape. But you can tag any concept you want. So, we would come out of the huddle. If we were huddling, formation would be spread right. You can even throw the tailback in a little elbow route back there if you want. We do that sometimes, depending on how much we need to commit to pass pro. You also can just have the tailback block, and you can have this guy go out there. But we'd come out, spread right, give the motion call, give our joker call with a pass protection, and then a backside tag. So it's usually about 3 words in our calls. If we're no huddling, then that stuff is kind of signaled in, and I don't want to give away too much about how we do that, but not too bad. So joker, good one for us. And then Batman, you saw before, this is where the jet motion goes towards the tight end wing typically. We bring this guy here. I think I even have one on the tape to show you where there's no wing. It's to a solo tight end with a tail, and the tail runs the wheel. But it's wheel seam, and usually we hit a backside skinny on that. If we're fearing blitz, then at any time we have a signal that we use to tell that guy to slant instead, so the quarterback can just throw that. I think I got one of those in the cut-ups too. Okay, so that's Batman. So those are the first 4 play actions that we put in. And then the next ones, I don't know if they're technically play actions or not, but I guess they are. They're kind of play action fake screens. And you can get to these a number of ways. You can bring a guy from trips in motion and work it that way, however you want to do it. You can arc a guy and bring him out this way. But we run bubble, okay? And again, if we wanted to run this play with motion, we might go 3-by-1 over here in tight end trips, bring this guy in motion and bubble him that way. But we have a call called Fresno, where it's basically a stutter and go. So the corner comes out like the receiver comes out like he's going to stalk the corner, and then he releases and goes deep. And you always have the check down with the bubble, and then you can tag whatever you want on the back, a drag or a drive or a Dallas or Dusty or whatever you like. So we have that one, and then we can do the same where instead of smoke, which we call rocket, we can fake rocket and run the wheel. We hit that. I think we hit each one of those maybe 2 or 3 times this year. So we build those into it. Once we put our screens in, then usually around the first week of the season we put these in. So that's kind of our play action game in a nutshell. There's other things, other like 2-step calls and special calls from this list. 1-step, 2-by-2 calls, whatever, that we can put play action into it easily enough just by changing the nature of the pass protection. So some of you guys want to message me and talk about pass protection and how we do that. I'd certainly be more than willing to answer some questions about how we call those and make those adjustments. But next thing, our trips concepts. We use a lot of flood concepts, and I kind of have some trips ones listed here. And which one of those are kind of flood concepts listed over here. We also have some bunch plays. I would say some years we spend some time on these and use them, and other years we don't use them at all. If you guys remember back a few years ago, some of you guys who were familiar with us, we had a quarterback named Levi Craig who really could sling it. We had a bunch of good receivers. Our tailback was not real physical. He was basically the 3rd slot. And our offensive line was not very good. So we threw the ball about 30 times a game, and we used bunch a ton that year. And, the theory, at least formationally on the bunch for me is, with 3 receivers bunched up like that and detached from the line of scrimmage, it really forces the defense to declare the way they want to play it. The drawback is if you're going to run bunch, it takes a lot of time because there's a lot of timing, and the route work is a little more intricate than it might be when you're just kind of spreading the field out. So You know, we have a few that we like a lot that we use every year, and then if there's years where we want to run a lot more bunch, then we'll kind of add to it. But in our regular trip stuff, and again, you can motion to trips either with cross motion or with arc motion, but we have a couple of things that we like when we flood the field. So, you know, we can go what we would call our flood concept. You know, Coach Doucette, my good friend from Oak Hill, you know, whoever we're playing first, we may come out and run this first because this was probably his favorite concept. So flood concept, again, you're just reading the flat player. We usually tell the quarterback pre-snap to look at the corner. If you do have a tight corner, if it's cover 2 and you want to throw the fade pretty quick, then he won't really roll out as much, and he'll just kind of take a 1.5 towards this side with his feet and throw the fade right now. That happens once in a while. Then, you know, usually there's a solo receiver here on the back, or if you're an empty, there's 2. If there's 2 receivers, you can use one of your backside tags. And then if not, our kind of default, our drag is just this guy does what he normally would do on drag, and he's got the post dig choice. And as always, if it appears like blitz, you want to have a call where he can slant, so you can throw something quick and hot. But read the flat player. If there's good spacing, he really can't cover both. Every once in a while, you find some guys who are pretty good at covering both. You know, we actually have a kid in our program, one of our Rovers, who saw so much of this last year as a freshman on the look team that he's become quite well at playing, and it's going to help him moving forward to get on the field at varsity level. And then that's flood, and then when we call rain, kind of like thunder and lightning, we just switch the responsibilities, and this is still a fade, and number 2 runs the shallow out, and number 3 runs the deeper out. Okay, so we've got that that we use quite a bit. I'm going to slide this camera over just a hair to make sure you guys can see everything that I am drawing. Okay, so that one would be rain. Those are probably the 2 flood concepts we use the most. And then I would say the third one is Cujo. And Cujo for us is curl, wheel, out. It's usually a Z out, so that it times up a little bit and lets the wheel get out of there. You know, the quarterback kind of pre-snaps the corner. If he feels like that curl is going to be in there, that might be his first look. If he feels like the corner is hard or inside leverage and he might get man, then he's going to anticipate the wheel a little bit more. You know, you can, if it's a cover 3 team, you can just teach it like a curl slide read and say, all right, the corner's really soft, he's going to cover the wheel, we're taking that out, and we're just going to throw curl slide off the rover or the outside backer. So we use that one a lot, and you guys will see when you see the cut-ups next week, we'll do this a lot where we motion from this side and just have this be a bubble instead of a shallow out. And we hit a big one coming out of the half against Wells this year on that one. So those are the 3 concepts I would say we use the most. When we get into the bunch, you know, lots of times we talk about compressing formations. We'll get down here in a tight bunch, and we use one we call Aussie, which is out corner stick, where we get that in there. So yeah, that's a nice one. If you really want to compress down and go tight end wing on the back, that's a pretty good formation that we like to use. And then you can drive the back of that thing like that. That's a nice little play. Quarterback just goes out, pre-snaps the corner to let him know if he thinks he might be able to throw that. If he's got a loose corner, then he's just going to read the flat player and throw one of those. You know, lots of times I think we get that right now 5-yard out on that play. So that's our kind of our trips flood package. We have a couple other plays that we use in trips. Not a ton, but we use them. Copper's one that we use both out of bunch and trips. The copper play is curl, post, out. And what we find with this one, if you tag it with something, you know, like a drive concept that keeps the shallow in there, or maybe you even use your tailback, you know, coming out of there, something that keeps this backer in here. You know, it's basically curl slide. We almost never throw the post unless it's man. We get cover 0, you'll see him unleash one. But he knows if he's going to throw that post, he's throwing it right way. But you get the curl slide, but you get a lot of room because the post kind of runs, especially this is a great cover 3 concept. The post runs into the safety, the shallow occupies this inside backer. He can't really expand to get out to this curl zone, and this guy can kind of keep working inside away from the corner until he gets there. And we tell this guy, once you get to where the corner is, then wheel it up. Okay, and it can become that. So it really opens up a nice, a nice window in there to throw the curl route. So, you get a third medium. That's a pretty good go-to, to try to get something there and get one of those intermediate routes. And, if you got one of those bigger, wide guys, those curl routes are pretty good for those guys. Face is another one we run. Very similar concept, just kind of a different way to get to it. Lots of times I'll show this one out of cross mow. Lots of times we do it with cross mow. Bring this guy in cross motion, and we just go fade. The curl is with number 2, and then the out is there, and we always shallow underneath to try to keep the backer from expanding when we do that. Or we'll bring the tail back, and we have a backside tag called Miami that we use, which is a tailback elbow. And if that backer expands to the curl, then as this backer expands when he sees the tailback, he splits him, and we try to get him in there. We don't involve the tailback in the pass plays a lot. He will get out there and empty if he's in the game, if we don't sub with a personnel package. But Miami is a tag that we use with a, we wouldn't shallow the tight end in that case. We would run the tight end right down the seam, and then the tailback runs the elbow. So that's a tag that we use on the back side as well. So that's face. Denver and Peel are both, really just 4 vertical concepts for us out of trips. So, tight end trips is a formation that we use quite a bit. Okay, Denver's our 4 vert concept. So we'd be there. He's trying to get to that hash over there. Okay, and he's got the fade over there. Okay, so it's like 4 verts, but you're not in 2x2. So instead of that guy running there, the tight end's trying to get it from there. If they're playing quarter, half, that's a pretty good way to expose that safety and put him in a lot of conflict. Okay, and then you can do the same thing on Peel. It's really the same read for the quarterback, but we go post, wheel, post, like that. And you got the same thing. You're putting that free safety in a bind right there. If they do something where they're going to go too high and bring this safety in here, then if you've got your best receiver on the backside of trips, you can hand signal something to him if he's really soft. If he's uptight, you take a shot on the go route and let him go get one. So that's how we do that. What are you on time? You're about 15 minutes. Let me get into, let's talk 2x2 for a minute. This is not going to be anything earth-shattering, but I'll just get it off the page for you guys. We're pretty typical with what we do in 2x2, just like you guys are. I'm sure you've got hitch corner, which we call hippo. You've got curl slide, which you can run. Okay, everybody's favorite, cover 3. So, we face cover 3. We're going to run a lot of curl slide. We face cover 2. Really hippo is good against either. To me, lots of times if it's cover 2 and we have curl slide called, that guy will just turn it into a fade. That combo for us is called Foxy, which I actually didn't put up here. So there's that. Got a couple other ones. One of the ones that I like personally against cover 2, we call Slice. Okay, and we'll usually, again, when we do these, lots of times they're not mirrored. There's kind of a backside call as well, but Slice for us is slant corner. And we'll try to, lots of times we'll try to deep banana that guy and post that guy. And against cover 2, you can get that a lot. Especially that guy gets a big split. Plus you've got that kind of ISO'd up on the corner. You can Dallas this thing on the back as well. Go double post. Anytime we put a corner on the front side, lots of times we like to go double post on the back. But Slice has been a good one to us for the cover 2 schemes. Against cover 3, We have another one, and the names, they're nothing. We either stole them from somebody or we let the kids make them up. Lots of times, if you let the kids make them up, they remember them. Lots of times, you just have to come up with names of things you can actually signal into the game. They have a fun time with that. We let them do a lot of that. Superman is a stick with a seam. And then we'll usually zipper this one on the back side. So you got stick seam over here. You get that soft cover 3 corner. You can throw that. You got the free safety in cover 3. He's got to cover both. Okay, and then if the backers are really looking to get up and kind of wall off these seams, you've got this under route coming on the zipper concept on the back side. So Superman zipper is a kind of a go-to in cover 3. It's also not a bad one to run off jet motion because you get the stick with the out there. So you can do it that way too. We have FAM for us is fades and mesh. So sometimes when we get down near the goal line, this is a play we use down in the red zone where we'll just have back shoulder fades. And then if for some reason he doesn't like to throw, he's got a mesh concept that he can throw. So, if teams play man a lot down in the red zone, that's a 2x2 we like to use down there. Also like to use, and completely stole this from Coach Lip, who probably stole it from every college coach in America, slot fade, which we call eagle. Okay, so in slot fade, these guys are running the fades. These guys are running a hitch. It's a kind of a delayed slant underneath like that. Kind of similar to the slice concept, to be honest, you're just running a fade instead of a corner. So there's that. That's a good one. The other thing, just to kind of go back to Foxy and tags, another thing that we'll do out of our empty sets, let's say we're in tight end trips with twins on the back, we can go Foxy and then tag it. We have some Y tags that we use over here on this list. I don't know if you can see them, but delay, cross, and dog are tags that our tight end or our Y knows are his. So we could go Foxy, and we did this a lot against Wells in that game where we go fade out, and then we can tag this guy with a delay where he'll block 1001, 1002, releasing the seam. We can tag it with a cross, Y cross, where he just crosses the field, or we can tag it with what we call a dog, which I think if you play Madden or you're paying attention a lot to what they call things, it's the stick nod look from the tight end. Again, it's hard to build all these things in. We're fortunate enough where we've got pretty good continuity from youth football all the way up to high school. Also fortunate enough that a lot of these guys that I'm coaching right now currently are guys who have played football with my sons. So I've been at a lot of those practices. A lot of the coaches on our staff have been at a lot of those practices. Our staff is made up. There's quite a few dads on our staff right now, and they're guys honestly who were here with me before their kids got here. They were part of our youth football program, and I brought them onto the high school staff to teach them more. And now they're guys, even when their kids graduate, they're going to be able to stay on staff, and they're pretty knowledgeable. And all of our guys go out at different times and help out the youth coaches. So, the more you do there, the more work you put in, the more you can build in. And what I would say is don't start too heavy. Pick some things out of your menu that are your non-negotiables, like I got to have these in, and then once your kids have those, move to something else. If we were not good enough to get past these 4, then we wouldn't get past these 4. But we're fortunate enough to be in a situation right now where we can. So that's what our 2x2 game looks like, and that's how we can, when we're in empty, we can call any of our 2x2 stuff, and then we can use a Y tag for the tight end, and he can, run some sort of route in the middle with those guys. So we've got that. What else is up there? Oh, probably ought to talk mesh, right? Got about 7-8 minutes to go. So there's a zillion different ways to run mesh. You're going to see it, in the cut-ups. In general for us, there's always, when we run mesh, we always like to have an over, an under, and what we call an OTB. And OTB for us means over the ball. So that guy's trying to get over the ball. And you can make rules where, it's always like the 2 closest receivers are going to mesh. The next guy out, it's the OTB. If you tag a lot of things in your game, you can do it that way. You could have certain guys. You could say the tight end is always the OTB. You know, we had a 6'5" tight end and usually a slot right next to him that could really scoot, so he was mostly the OTB and the slot was the mesher. So if we were going to run it just, you know, pretty typical, you know, if we don't need the tailback and the protection, we'll use him on a wheel route. And sometimes we'll tear motion him out of the backfield and just let him do it that way and just fade down the sideline. But the wheel route's pretty good because it expands the flat player, forces him to widen a little bit, and opens up some room for the shallow cross behind him. Typically, we're trying to read a backer on this. Okay, we've got those guys in the mesh and the tight end on the OTB, and usually we're working something behind the free safety over there. Okay, so lots of times this is the read, right? If he plays the mesh, then throw the OTB. If he, you know, is just bailing to get out of there, throw the shallow cross right in front of him. But you have to throw the shallow cross in this window because that guy's not going to expand forever. So, you know, that's something, you know, sometimes we'll run it too where instead of an OTB route, you know, if we're in trips over here, you know, we might do something like that and have him be the mesher and bring this guy from the other side. For us, our general rule is the guy on the right is always over, the guy on the left is always under. That way they don't bang into each other. When we first put in mesh, I shouldn't be laughing because it really wasn't that funny when it happened, but when we first put in mesh, it was 2004 or 5. I think it was 5. The summer before 2005, we decided we were going to run mesh, and one of the first times we called it in 7-on-7, those two guys ran into each other, and one of them was pretty much unconscious. You know, having that rule, and those guys, you'll see them in 7-on-7, not so much in the games, but when they break the huddle, they, hey, you're over, I'm under. And they know. And the guy who's over can never be wrong. The guy who's under always has to be under. So, you know, the under guy knows it's my job to get under the over. So we do give them general landmarks for depth. You know, we like the over to flatten. You know, we like the over to get to about 6 yards over the ball right there, maybe 5 yards. And this would be 4 to 5 yards, so he'd be a yard underneath him. They almost should be able to slap hands on the way by if they reached out. But there's going to be times when those guys get bumped. They're not, you know, it's not 7-on-7 where they're going to get free releases. So it's always the job of the guy on the left for us to get under the guy coming from the right. And like I said, most of the time the read is the play side backer, and our quarterbacks know once the free safety gets down in on the OTB that the next time we call it, he's probably going to throw the post. And you'll see that, you know, more in 7-on-7 than in games. We haven't hit this a ton in real games, maybe once or twice the last couple of years. But the quarterbacks are looking for it, and they know. So that's, you know, we like to run it a lot out of that with the tailback out of the backfield. Also, another way to do it out of a compressed formation, that tight bunch set we talked about before, you know, is a nice one. Where you can get everything here, you can wheel this guy out of here, you can OTB that guy, these guys can mesh, and he can run the post. That's a great way to run it. You know, you can do something similar, and you can, you know, you can cross motion. Okay, and bring this guy in cross motion and wheel him. Okay, and mesh and OTB there. Compress this thing down and shallow cross with the split. There's a number of different ways to do it. It does get a little difficult. The more ways you run it, it gets difficult for rules and kids to know, you know, am I the OTB? Am I one of the meshers? You know, all of a sudden I was the wide guy running the post, but now I'm one of the crossers. It becomes a little more intricate. So I would pick, you know, one formation where you like it, work it a lot, add another formation once you get pretty good at it, then maybe add one out of a motion. You know, we've run it too with jet motion, where the jet back is the wheel, okay? So there's a number of different ways that you can run mesh that way. A couple of variations or things that we do off from that, and I got some good mesh cut-ups in the film to show you. But another way that we work off that, another play we have is called Z. And Z basically is fake mesh. So I'll show it to you how to empty. I think that's what's on the clips that I'm going to show. They start to go like they're going to mesh and they're going to Z out. right? So, right, some sort of look like that. You know, good, like if you get teams who are going to play man-to-man, especially down near the goal line, pretty good red zone play, or just teams that are pretty hot on mesh, that's a good way to run it. So primarily something we would use against teams that play man, but a good mix-up if you run a lot of mesh. And then the other one we run is called scat. Scat for us means there's not an over. It's a shallow cross with an OTB. So there's no mesh over here. We'd run some sort of deep route. We usually change it every year because we can never decide what we like. And he runs a bubble. If he's in the backfield, then he's just going to bubble from there. And it looks like that. And then this guy's always something in behind the free. So if he gets up on the OTB, you can throw it. You know, we in the state game completed a couple of these. We hit the tailback once on a bubble for a pretty good gain. And then down near the goal line, I think we had it called on a 2-point play. And this guy, he changed his route at the line of scrimmage. He had kind of an inside leverage man corner, and we just ran a quick out and threw it to him. So scat, mesh, and Z, those are pretty good ones. And then, you know, we also have the Okie call, which it's new to us. We haven't run it a lot. I think only once in a game. And I don't even think we were able to throw it, but we've started working on it in practice, where the shallow cross becomes a wheel. You just really got to have a guy who can scoot. Probably don't bubble the tailback when we do that. We keep him in because you're going to need more time on the pass pro. But that's something that we've kind of added to the playbook a little bit and are doing now. Getting pretty close on time here. Got another minute or two. We talked a lot about the tags, the specials, the 2x2, the flood, the trips. You know, another good, you know, if you do get in the bunch, just a couple of concepts there that we like. The rub concept is like that. You can make this a corner route instead of a curl route if you want, but it's basically curl slide out of bunch. We really only throw this if it's open right now. You know, you can curl this guy and wheel that guy. There's a number of ways to do that, but good against man and the ability to high-low and flood the zone against cover 3. We run our 4-vert concept out of that. We call it sluggo, where we get a real fat post to cross the face of the free safety. He wheels out of there, and then he splits them and gets up the field. You know, we can, you know, then get a fade on the backside over here. We also can run Cujo out of this with that same action, but he curls and he comes back that way. We've got some other things where we either trail number 3, he comes in and then trails out, or he heads out and comes back in. There's kind of a number of things you can do out of the bunch that are pretty good. So I don't have a lot of those on the cut-ups. I think I got a sluggo on there. We haven't run a lot of that in the last couple of years, but they're all right. We throw them in there once in a while. And then just lastly on the screens, you know, bubble, rocket. You know, we stole this from Coach Costin at York, which I like. They do a nice job with it. We call it blur. It's a bubble rocket. So, you know, this guy will come out like this, and he goes like he's going to bubble, and then he comes back, and we throw it in there. Usually we try to get the tail back out in front when we do that instead of play action. So that's a nice little mix-up you can throw into your quick screen game. We have the slip screens that we have with the tailbacks. Work those quite a bit, where the tail is going to, you know, slip out one way or the other. You can also do it off play action, and you can slip out that way. There's a number of ways you can do that. Those are pretty good. You know, we throw, well, we probably throw one of those a game, I would say. We try to mix it up week to week on where we bring the tailback from, whether he's, you know, it's right or left, or play side, weak side, towards the trips, away from the trips, in play action. Sometimes we run some throwbacks where, you know, it's a sprint out action, and we do that. We also run like a throwback rocket where the quarterback sprints that way. And then he stops and turns and throws the rocket back. A little dangerous, but you know, we try to, with our screen game, I look at those as like gadget plays. We try to carry one good screen that we work on really hard that week and one good gadget play, into every game plan. And if the gadget play doesn't get used, it makes it to the next game plan. Same with the screen, and then once we use it, we move on to the next one. So, but we try to vary them up so that the defense doesn't know they get in this formation that they like this screen, or this guy lines up like this, and it kind of gives it away. So the other one too, I just saw over there. I'll end with this: the shimmy motion. That's a great way to run mesh as well, where you bring this guy down in, and then he's the over, he's the under, he's the OTB. You wheel the tailback out of the backfield and post behind the safety. So that's another good look there. So that's what I got for today, man. That was a good session. It's been good to just talk some football, even though I'm in here talking to myself. But a number of you guys have emailed me or messaged me on Twitter or whatever, and we've been able to talk some football that way. So that's been good. We got to do what we can during this time off. So yeah. I'll be in touch over the weekend. I'll tweet it out, and I'll email the coaches in Maine. Monday, crossing the fingers that our building will be open. We're going to have Coach Capone ready to go on special teams. Tuesday is going to be session 2 of this talk. We're going to do some film work, and you can see some of these and what they look like. And then we'll kind of plot out the rest of the week after that. But like I said, hoping to get Coach Russell to chat with us from far away up at Norwich Academy. Going to try to get somebody else to chat in on Thursday, maybe even a couple guys where we have a little bit of a round table. And then Friday, looking to get some practice planning stuff in, and then looking ahead, definitely want to get some O-line guys and some defense guys and get some of that stuff going too. So as long as we're out, we'll try to keep this going. So thanks for chiming in today, and I'll see you guys next week. Enjoy your weekend.